Hello, my fellow students of Journey 300 and listeners everywhere. My name is Derek Mitchell, and today we have our first podcast for the class with my friend right here, Brian Rector. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian? Just talk about like your career, talk about where you've been, talk about how you got to Michigan State and in Michigan State athletics as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, yeah, first off, thank you all for tuning into this. And thank you for thinking of me for this podcast show. But I'm from Portland, Oregon originally. So it was kind of an abstract thing when I first came here. People had the tendency to ask why, so I've gotten used to telling that story. But it started when I was very young. I was 8 years old. And my family had been a West Coast family by trade, and my dad's from Southern California. And so I grew up in the collegiate sports landscape, but because all of my family has gone to UC Santa Barbara or USC, University of Southern California, right in LA there. So I grew up going to football games for USC, traveling around the country, and I was a big time fan. But when I was turning 9, my family kind of had a couple things that we were dealing with and sorting through. And so that was my time to realize, like, I can pick and choose my own school, and I can pave my own path and have my own identity. And I started to settle on Michigan State because I loved watching collegiate sports. And that was right about the time that Kirk Cousins was here doing his thing. And so I got introduced to the culture and to the atmosphere of being in Spartan Stadium. And then who would have thought that when high school came around, we started doing all of this that you and I do, that broadcasting, media, podcasts, and at Michigan State, there's truly almost no better place in the world to do what we do. So it just felt organic, and now we're here.
Absolutely, Brian. You brought up broadcasting, you brought up that area of what we do and what you do as a broadcaster, and that's something that I've been trying to get into as well in broadcasting. And we have a call coming up soon in a couple of hours, actually. But
yeah, we're prepping, folks. We're prepping. Sal Migley, he's on the way. Don't forget that name.
I love it. Make sure you tune in on Big Ten Plus for sure. But can you talk a little bit about your broadcast career and how you actually learned that you wanted to be in front of the camera? How did you get to that point in your career? How did you want to be in front of the camera? How did you want to start your podcast? Can you talk a little bit about just you being in front of the camera and how you actually want to be one of those on-camera personalities?
Yeah, for sure. So growing up, I played a few sports, and I never really, because of a condition actually that I was born with that affected my back and the strength of my legs, I was never really one of those who was elite at running or any physically demanding type of exercise, any sport that was very requiring of you to be active, right? That was just tougher for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was younger, I looked to get involved in different ways. And so kind of what I was referencing in the first question was that I loved the history of the sport, learning about each different sport, and learning how to communicate about them, because for me, that was my even playing field, was talking about sports, even if it wasn't even when I was playing them, right? And so that's where I come from, is desiring to grow in my knowledge. And so in that, I started a few different jobs as like a team manager. And then in high school, I had the chance to first bring in the Wilsonville Broadcast Network, which, once again, I'm from suburb of Portland, Oregon. But we were on the front line of working on broadcasting for sports in the state of Oregon. And so I kind of ascended that rank really quickly and became that guy because I was one of one in that situation, right?
Absolutely.
It's like I was trusted by my English teacher there, and then I had this love for it, and I just went out across the state and announcing games for whether it be basketball, football, volleyball. We would do baseball, softball as well, soccer a ton. So I just became well-rounded. And over the course of my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, I did upwards of 175, 200 games and a couple different state championships and many events that catapulted my love and my platform into what it is here at Michigan State.
Wow. 175 games is crazy. You've never told me that. You never told me how many games you've called when you just being in your high school tenure, and now going to college, you seem so comfortable doing what you do, and that's now I know why. So that's amazing.
Yeah, that's what that is.
That's amazing, B-Rec. But could you talk a little bit about now your Big Ten U experience, what being a crew member is like, what being on calls is like, what broadcasting is like, or just doing being a camera operator, doing replay and other stuff like that. Can you talk a bit about the Big Ten Student U experience and what you learned and what you gained from doing that at Michigan State?
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing I have to say about being a part of Big Ten Student U is that it's not well marketed among the students. It's difficult to find unless we're growing now, because we're seeing an influx of highly talented people who are willing to talk about it and share what's happening with other people in the sports and media realms.
Yes.
And so we're seeing some connectivity and some relationships that are on a much higher level than we've ever seen. But I say that because when I came here as a freshman, I didn't know about BTN Student U or that it was a possibility until February of my freshman year. So that would have been February 2022. And then I learned about it because I was scrolling through the Michigan State Athletic Department website, and I stumbled upon Spartan Vision. They said, if you're interested, contact Nick Baker, which I did. And then bing, bang, boom, here's a man named Matt McCullough, who has really, ushered in a newfound experience for students really across the country. It's one of the unique ones that Michigan State has in terms of we're producing every live event that happens as Michigan State sports that aren't broadcast nationally on the Fox, the ESPN, the CBS, the True TV.
Yes.
Everything that isn't on that type of level is kicked to the curb, so to say, and we pick it up and get to do it as a student-run network.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that happened for me. But then, like he was talking about with the amount of crewing positions, what happens is when you're on BTN Student U, you are given a crew sheet where you have the option to apply your name to what's called the tech book, and it's for each and every game. So there's something like 20 spots or so that are usually assigned to different people. And from there, our boss, Matt, will take a look at the names and assign each person to a crew assignment that they desire to do or that he happens to know that they are great at. And it's kind of just determined based off of your experience and how much and like how well utilized you are in that different position. So that can be anything from broadcasting the game to sideline reporting for the game to graphics for the game to audio to any of the different cameras that you see during the game to the producer, director. There's so many different roles, and it's trying to emulate a big time broadcast, but just doing so with the technology and the skills and the power of the people that is present here within the student body at Michigan State.
Absolutely.
So it's entirely student run, and that's what's really special about it, is that there is oversight for sure from guys like Matt and Nick and Dylan Kissel, but it's student based out.
Absolutely. It's completely student led. Besides a couple of the hiring thing, you're talking about Dylan, who runs Spartan Vision.
Yeah.
But a bunch of people like that, Matt as well, who just run it in a certain way. But it's definitely student led.
Yeah.
Jack Stager, he is actually at Big Ten's the control room right now, and he's actually working to put on the shows tomorrow.
Right.
So it's completely student led, and what you get out of it is what you put out of it. Like what you put into it is what you get out of it. Is how I describe Big Ten.
Absolutely.
Would you describe it in that way as well?
I would, for sure. And I think that's a great question. Or not question, but way that you transition into that. Because it's student led, there is so much accountability and so much not pressure, but emphasis on filling your role.
Yes.
And showing up every day when you're put on the tech book and putting your best foot forward. And even when you're in a situation where the conditions are working against you, to just keep putting one foot in front of the next, because we're all students, we all have classes, we all have family life, we all have relationships, we all have these different elements, different clubs, different activities that we're all a part of, which means that it's a breeding ground for successes and failures.
100%.
But we need to come back day in and day out with the same level of intensity and understanding that we have each other's backs. And so I love that about the culture because it changes every single day. That's a part of the position, and a part of the way it's set up is that no 2 days will be the same.
Yes.
And so I love that, but that can be a challenge too.
It's definitely a challenge. And you talked about culture of Big Ten student. You talked about the culture of Michigan State journalism. I know you just joined Spartan Sports Report.
Yeah.
And you've been talking about that, and you were just there earlier this morning to interview the president. But you were there and you were a part of the process, and that's really, really awesome.
Shout out AJ Evans. That dude delivered when he was interviewing President Guskowitz. That was phenomenal.
Absolutely. But could you talk a little bit about MSU J School and how that kind of like goes in the Big Ten U? Could you talk about both of those and just how supportive some people in there, like LA or different people who really support you and what you want to do, they help you and they put you in the right direction. They talk to the right people. So could you talk a little bit about how those things go hand in hand?
From a
cultural standpoint.
For sure. And I think like what you just said is ringing true in my mind because of where I was just at today. So as he said, I was over at the School of Communication, Colmar Psi today, where we were meeting with and introducing ourselves as a club or as an organization in SSR to President Guskowitz because he's new and is taking time to move around and meet these different organizations. And one thing that really fully registered to me is that everybody knows everybody. Because typically when we think about it, we see SSR over here, and we see Big Ten Student U over here, and we see Spartan Vision over here. But it's like, dang it, man. Like Nick Baker knows and loves Matt, who knows and loves LA, which means that each of these heads of business on these different platforms is ready and willing to contribute to everyone else's opportunities and to everyone else's causes that they're carrying out, because they're all a little bit different and they're all unique, but they're all led by one body, I feel like.
Yes.
And so when you get that opportunity to sit there in a room for SSR, but yet somebody who's advocating and going to bat for SSR in front of the president of the university is a leader in this different bucket of BTN Student U, you can really see how they're all married together and how each and every organization that is under the umbrella of the journalism school makes a difference within each other and how their kids overlap and how it all connects. And so I'm glad you said that because I witnessed it just this morning, is that's completely true. That's something that we all think about and we all hear about and we all desire to have.
Yes.
But dang it, that was real and that was in practice today. And it made a difference, from what I could tell, to the president himself, which he's new, and that's the type of culture that we want to reveal, because from my understanding, that's the type of culture that he wants.
Absolutely.
As being the leader and steward of this university. Now, I think he's in his 4th week or something on the job,
yes.
So it's new, relatively, but it's an event like that where we can all come together and show what we're about that will really, I think, inform his steps and where we go as a people, which I love that about Michigan State. That same thing wouldn't happen in a lot of places around the country, but it happens here because the priority on family and that atmosphere of bonding together is so highly emphasized.
Absolutely. Just you saying that and you speaking about that just kind of warmed my heart a little bit, because I love being a part of something like that, something that everybody can just come together to put out a certain product and to show other people that we could be just a warm, like a comforting group of people that all know each other and want to help each other. We just want to help. We want to put out the best content. We just want to help in any ways possible.
That's right.
So I can go to anybody in the J School and they would help me immediately just off of our relationship and just off of being a nice individual, being a nice person. That's probably what's the best thing about the whole journalism, like school and the journalism profession as a whole. And that is kind of why I love being in it, and you probably love being in it as well. But I have one final question for you, Brian.
No doubt.
You being a broadcaster and you prepping for broadcast, and we were just doing that a couple minutes ago, but
that
you prepping
that we were.
But you prepping for broadcast, could you talk a little about the audience? Just explain how you prep and how you want to go about those things and how you carry yourself on the mic and carry yourself on the airwaves, let's say, of Michigan State Athletics. Can you talk about how you prep, talk about how you carry yourself, and just go through your process and your steps? And could you give anybody, like, just a little bit of, honestly, just a little bit to talk to them about, just about what you do and how you do, and can you give someone, if someone's asking a question about how to call a game or how to do that, what would you tell them is really my question to you.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'll say this. I'll lead with a short story,
Yes,
and
sir.
then I'll leave with a couple actionable items. So, number one, the story is when I was doing my thing back in Wilsonville, Oregon, shout out WBN once more. We had to hit that up.
Sir.
John Fitzgerald doing his glory over there at Wilsonville. He put me in a place where I was now beginning to do our football games. And of course, Friday Night Lights is the cream of the crop in the
Absolutely.
high school experience. Like, that's what anyone in our position or any athlete desires, is to play in front of their home crowd on a Friday. And, you
best
know,
day.
yeah, that's right. Have a showdown under the lights. But I say that because when I did games, I had previously done games for basketball.
Yes.
And basketball, the way it was set up within my hometown was that the broadcasting was independent.
Wow.
It was done just by me through a open broadcasting software called Mixler. And so you would get, literally, and I'm not making this up, folks, you would get like 14, 15 people watching each game. And it's like, dang it, 14 or 15? I
Yeah.
mean, what? Are you kidding me? And
It's a big upgrade to what we do now.
that's right. And so that's actually where I'm going, is I did not foresee what was happening with the 14 or 15 viewers as being important.
Yes.
And I didn't look at it and say, I need to be the most prepared. I was just aiming to learn and develop my own style.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did a year of soccer and basketball, and then football came around.
Yes, sir.
And the first football game, I remember this because it was during COVID. The first football game that was broadcasted by us that year of 2020, November 2020,
Mm-hmm.
was without any fans. Of course,
Yes.
right? That's just
COVID.
organic with
Mhm.
COVID. And so I remember because I was doing the game and I was wanting to get more prepared because I knew it was a big deal. Back to the Friday Night Lights thing. And then we did the game without a hitch, and it went well, and people were happy, and we were all rejoicing. And the next morning, that Saturday, I was walking through my high school for like a meeting the next day. And my English teacher, John Fitzgerald, pulled me aside and said, "Do you want to know how many people were listening?" And I said, "Not really, but tell me anyway." And he looks at me and goes, 7,500 people were watching our game. And I went, whoa. That's a third. That is a third of the people in my hometown that were tuned into my announcing on a Friday night.
That is amazing.
And that's when the prep started for me, because I now understood it's for a bigger picture. It's for more than just my learning.
Yes.
People are caring now, and people are wanting to see a high level product be put out.
Yes.
And so going forward, that informed the amount of time I was preparing. It'll come down to analyzing the history of the school. It'll come down to speaking with players and coaches. It'll come down to looking at the box score and the statistics for the year that have happened
Yes.
prior to the game I'll do. I will try and conduct interviews, if I can, with SIDs, with players, with coaches, with spectators. And then from there, I will build out all of my prep sheets. And so like today, just as evidence, I was going through a Wikipedia page about the history of Lewiston, New York. And you may ask, what does that matter? Well, the truth is, folks, it wouldn't under any other circumstance.
Yes.
But the fact is, Michigan State baseball is entering a 3-game series against Niagara University, which he and I will be on call for 6:05 tomorrow, April 5th. But that being said, is like, and actually it's the 6th tomorrow.
It's the 6th
It's the
tomorrow,
6th
yeah.
tomorrow. But anyway, April 6th. It matters, folks, because we are catering to people who we don't know. We're catering to a culture that they've established over 100 or more years of baseball,
Yes.
I don't want to take that for granted. I don't want to look at what they've done and say, oh man, I should just fixate on Michigan State. Like, no.
Yes.
Here at college, we have all of the resources and the mental acuity and the skills,
Yes.
presumably, to go and do the research and to find informed statistics and to build out a copious number of facts
Absolutely.
and pages. So I'm on each game. I'll print out pages from SIDs. I will write out 3 or 4 pages of like one-liner thoughts that will transform into something more when we get there to the live game scenario. So that's kind of what we do. I value the prep now because I realized back then just how much it meant to these communities. And it's, as you said, even increased now. You know, I think the Nebraska game we did had like 80,000 viewers or something. It was pretty significant, right? So, and that was volleyball earlier in 2023. But yeah, that's where the prep comes from. That's why it's important. And I mentioned a couple of the things that I use to make
Yes, sir.
sure I'm all squared away.
Yes, sir. I just love how you describe the come up, coming from just 14 or 13 viewers to 80,000 viewers on a Big Ten Plus stream, doing what you do. I was alive here, right? Did you have to just do that off the whim?
That was.
And those stories and you telling that is probably really inspiring to me and probably a lot of inspiring the audience as well. Just you being able to gain a certain level of trust, and gain a certain level of you being confident in being able to do something like that. And now you have these people listening to you all the time, and you're on calls every other week. Gymnastics, baseball, basketball,
That's
you
right.
name it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing all these beautiful things, and that's amazing, B, right?
That's right.
And I really thank you for being on here today.
My man.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, B,
And,
right?
I appreciate it.
Always. I just wanted to